Into the Spider-Verse was my first favourite movie of all time. Across the Spider-Verse was a marvel, by showing that this series is not a lightning in the bottle success. When Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, this could be the trilogy that makes the general public appreciate animated movies for what they can be. Not amazing animated movies, but spectacular movies. Spider-Verse 3 could become my new favourite movie, and my favourite movie trilogy of all time. And I say that as someone who has not watched Lord of the Rings.
So you have chosen death.
Everyone is talking about how incredible Across the Spider-Verse is, and while I want to join in on the conversation, a lot of what I want to say has already been said. We all know it's an amazing movie, that it follows the two rules of a superpowered multiverse movie. 1, the villain's origin is about a bagel, and 2, there's a microwave. I'd also just be drowned out by the bigger fish, so I decided no.
I'm gonna do my own thing.
Across the Spider-Verse set up a lot of things for Beyond the Spider-Verse, and I think we can figure out some of what will happen next. The best place to start would be where Spider-Verse 2 left off, Earth 42. Miles versus Miles, Nike versus Adidas. This fight is only going one way, and I think it's that our Miles will convince Earth 42 Miles to help him. I believe that E42 Miles and Aaron will take any opportunity to save Jefferson, even if it's not their Jefferson, just for the sake of redemption in the godforsaken world they are trapped in. Why do I believe this so strongly as opposed to them just being the first bosses at the opening gates of the movie? Is it because I believe in everyone's inherent goodness, that no matter the universe, Miles Morales is a good, kind person at his core? No. Adidas. The kid's wearing a product placement. Do you know that Apple has one rule when they do product placements in movies? They don't allow villains to use iPhones. I would not be surprised if Adidas has the same rule, especially since they're going face to face against the poster boy of Nike himself. Adidas are not going to want to support a villain, only to have that villain lose to a hero repping their competition. It's like how The Rock is not allowed to lose a fight in a movie. Just think how brands will go about the same issue. Follow up on Earth 42. It's kind of a mess. That's getting fixed. There's two ways I see that happening. The first is that the Spider Society start taking shifts cross-dimensionally so they can cover this one extra universe without missing a Spidey. Or Earth 42 Miles an Hour turn over a new leaf and decide to be the heroes of their own world. That it's not just that anyone can be Spider-Man, but that you can be a hero without any powers. Anyone can do good. Even people who wear Adidas. There has been talk about a plot hole in Across the Spider-Verse, one that I think will be addressed in Beyond the Spider-Verse. But if you've watched Spider-Verse 2 and don't know what I'm talking about, you might want to stay blind to this and be caught off guard if it does get addressed. The plot hole, funnily enough, is not caused by the Spot, but instead is more of a Miguel O'Hara shaped hole. A hole you could find right in the middle of his well-defined duct. Anyway, Miguel is trying his hardest to keep the canon intact, so another universe doesn't break down, so no one else feels the pain of trying to save your loved ones and the world to do both. But is this right? According to what Miguel showed us, by breaking too many canon events, the universe you are in will break down the same way the Spideys do when they are in the wrong universe. Which current theory is,
I don't think my atoms are real jazzed about being in the wrong dimension.
Cellular decay. So the question I have is, why does breaking the canon lead to the same result that being in the wrong universe does? Well, what other examples do we have? In Mumbattan, the canon broke when Miles saved Inspector Singh from the falling building. The building did start glitching out, but it was also the only thing glitching out and was falling into a hole left by the Spot, a hole which could very well have led to another dimension, and the bleeding from that hole is what caused the glitching. Then there's also the canon event itself. Inspector Singh was meant to die, but was he meant to die because an interdimensional being broke into his reality after being created by a Spider-Man who was never meant to exist in the first place? That doesn't seem right. And speaking of Miles, why does he have canon events? He's not the Spider-Man of his universe. Chris Pine was, Peter Parker was. Surely when Peter died, that broke the canon, and Earth 1610 should have glitched out of existence. I do have a working theory for this. Because Miles became Spider-Man in that universe, he was the figurative spider holding his universe's web together. which is why he then had to have his own canon events of his uncle dying and the upcoming loss of a police captain being his father. But because Miles is different by having a spider come from the wrong universe, he has a knock-on effect on other universes. So when the canon event of his father dying is predicted, it can be at the hands of a being which also has a knock-on effect on the other universes. When the Spot showed Miles the vision of his father dying, he linked it with a vision of Inspector Singh dying, possibly by altering the multiversal web so that becomes Pavita's new canon event of a captain dying, where originally it would be Inspector Singh slipping on a banana peel and falling off the side of the road. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering why in every other universe the canon event is the death of a captain, but on Earth 5101b it's an inspector, that's because in India there is no rank of a captain, and the equivalent is an inspector. A really cool detail. That, at least in my mind, is a way they could explain why Miles has canon events. But it doesn't explain why only the building containing the Spot hole was glitching. You may argue against this, but according to Miguel's theory, something still doesn't fit. One universe should have broken down, a universe which didn't just lose one canon event, but all of them. Earth 42. The radioactive spider of Earth 42 never bit anyone. That canon event never happened. That person never lost someone close to them to teach them the responsibility of their powers, or that they need to believe that they can be a hero if they try. They never save a child from a burning building. They never walk down a sidewalk pointing finger guns at random women. These canon events never happened on Earth 42. So why is it still there? The fact that Earth 42 is still standing after all this time, unharmed by dimensional glitching and erasure, is the strongest argument against Miguel's perceived version of events. Now, is Miguel lying, hiding details to make the Spider-Man of the other universes work with him? Or was he mistaken by the turn of events in the universe he thinks he ruined? I honestly believe it's the latter, or that if Miguel is lying, he's not doing it out of malicious intent. Why do I think that? Well, it's because of how I think they will handle the confrontation with the Spot, or at least how I would like them to. I really love the Spot. I went into this movie knowing nothing except the Spider Society, so assume the Spot would just be a villain at the beginning of the movie before we move on to the whole dimension travelling thing. And technically I was right. The Spot was the villain before we got to the Spider Society, but I didn't realise they would flesh him out and he would become a serious threat. In writing, a lot of character strengths and motivations come from a type of trauma or flaw. A god complex comes from a feeling of inferiority. The desire to become strong begins after being beaten up and not being able to defend yourself. Compassion comes from acting cruel. The Spot's goal of revenge against Miles is because he feels that Spider-Man ruined his life by turning him into this. And this didn't just become his goal, it became his life purpose. The Spot declares him to be Spider-Man's nemesis, and either became or made himself Miles' canon event that would kill his father. We meet the Spot in a really low point of his life, robbing from a convenience store ATM machine. And he does it badly since he doesn't have a great grasp of his powers. He has no hope of being Spider-Man's nemesis at that point, and I think he only says that in the first place because he has nothing else to do. The Spot has just turned to a life of crime because he can't find work. He unloads his feelings off onto Miles when he sees him, thinking this will be a big moment between the two, properly meeting, but Miles sees it as an inconvenience in his own life. What Miles sees as an inconvenience, the Spot lived losing everything, becoming the laughingstock of Alchemax, a place where he was a very respectable scientist, being recognised by both Doc Ock and Wilson Fisk. His family now find him hideous. The Spot lost all sense of identity since no one recognises him anymore, and neither does he. All that's left for him is hatred, directed at the person who changed his life to this. And that just made me sad. I don't think the Spot hates Spider-Man. He hates himself. He hates that his family can't stand to even look at him anymore. He hates that his peers can't treat him the same as they did before, to empathise with him. If you can't even recognise yourself when you look in the mirror, and your apparent friends and family don't care about what you've been through, you're probably going to see yourself as a monster. But seeing yourself as a monster isn't hating others, it's hating yourself. The Spot partakes in destructive behaviour, so it makes sense the only responses he gets are negative, and the only person he seems to have any lengthy conversation with fights him, disregards him, and leaves him hanging for the police to deal with. There's a metaphor for incarceration versus rehabilitation there. So what do I think will happen in Beyond the Spider-Verse? I hope the Spot gets a hug is what, and if I am right about Earth 42 Miles being good, that Miguel turns out to be wrong about canon events that had good intentions, then it would be thematically in line that the Spot would get help and compassion, not just bang, thwap, wallop. Now, that's not saying I don't think fight scenes won't happen and look absolutely orgasmic. Well, maybe they won't if they're planning on releasing the movie in 2024, where they're currently in the pre-production stage. These are all the main breadcrumbs I picked up from Across the Spider-Verse that need to be resolved in Beyond the Spider-Verse. But there is one movie we're missing here, and I think there is a loose thread where people just dismiss it as a plot hole, which could swing back around to complete the web of the Spider-Verse trilogy. That thread is time travel. In the first movie, the Spider-Men are transported to 1610 because Green Goblin pushes Peter into the beam. But earlier in the movie, we see Gwen is already at Brooklyn Division's Academy. The only explanation of this is that Gwen acknowledges it by saying,
"I was blown into last week."
Which isn't an explanation, so it'd be nice if an answer were to be more fleshed out. And I want to be clear that I don't think Beyond the Spider-Verse will be some time travel movie. Time travel usually opens up a lot of questions about causality and whatnot, which just doesn't get answered in a satisfying way, or is ignored with the pretense that it makes the movie smart. Into the Spider-Verse already has a time travel thread that would be incredible if they can tie it back up. And if not, I'm happy with accepting that, and it was just there because they needed to introduce Gwen before Miles got bit for the pacing of the movie. Now, with all that being said, I do have an idea on how they can bring back the time travel point. Throughout the first two movies, we are told Miles shouldn't be Spider-Man, and Miguel tells him it's because the spider wasn't meant to bite him as it came from a different universe. And that makes sense. Stuff from one universe should stay in that universe. But why? If universes aren't meant to interact, why can they? If time is planned out with fixed events, why can they go wrong? What was the original timeline for Earth 1610? Wilson Fisk tasks Alchemax to create a machine which can summon a different version of his wife and child from an alternate dimension. In a test, a radioactive spider is transported to the universe and is able to escape where it begins to roam around the nearby area. Peter Parker breaks into Alchemax and steals the data needed to create a goober that will destroy the machine. He then goes to the underground facility, fights the Green Goblin, and destroys the reactor before the test can start. The spider is then sucked back into the machine and back to Earth 42 during this time, or a scientist finds it and sends it back sometime later. While this is happening, Miles Morales starts at Brooklyn Vision's Academy. He goes to his Uncle Aaron's apartment one evening to vent, gets a text from his dad, goes back to his dorm, and does his homework. This, as we know, is not what happened. Miles was bitten in the sewers leading into the facility, and so returned there to find the spider when Peter was about to stop the machine, who then prioritised Miles as he was falling. This gave Green Goblin enough time to recover and for Prowler to enter the scene to stop Spider-Man, and also for the other Spider-Men to be summoned by Green Goblin pushing him into the collider, which makes the end of Into the Spider-Verse quite gross, because in that little box where Vanessa and Richard were, there had to be the DNA of Vanessa and Richard, so Wilson Fisk put their remains in that box to summon a different version of them. Ew. So then, what went wrong? What multiversal tomfoolery caused the events that weren't meant to happen? My answer, Gwen Stacy. This whole sequence of events is a loop that has to happen. Peter Parker's death and Miles being bitten is set in stone a week before it happens. All because of Gwen. As soon as she appears on Earth 1610, a week before she is summoned there, Peter has to be pushed in the machine, otherwise she will never be transported. In reality, Miles isn't the original anomaly. She is. Whatever Gwen does in this week leading up to Peter Parker's death are the actions which change the timeline, so she is there in the first place. But surely, you say, Gwen didn't do anything. She didn't even meet Peter Parker. No, but she met Miles Morales. Her spider sense told her to go to Vision's Academy. She said she realised why when she sensed Miles with his powers, but she didn't meet him when he had his powers. I think she spun in motion Miles obtaining his abilities. Miles got bit because Aaron decided to take him to the sewers near the facility to do graffiti. What caused this to happen? Well, Miles started talking about Gwen. Miles goes to visit Aaron, they talk about school. Aaron asks about any girls, to which Miles replies that there is one, leading Aaron to sit next to him and show him the shoulder touch. hey. And then in turn notice the art Miles is drawing. And as Miles tries to leave, Aaron decides to cheer him up by taking him to de-stress by throwing up Miles' art. If Miles never met Gwen, the conversation could have easily gone in a different direction. Since Miles wouldn't have a girl to talk about, Aaron wouldn't sit next to Miles, he wouldn't see the art, and so when Miles gets his text from his dad, he just goes home. This means Miles wouldn't get his powers, and the spider could crawl back into the main Alchemax facility where it could be returned to Earth 42. I mean, the Spot was able to find it. What I'm describing here is a bootstrap paradox. Peter dies because he has to be pushed into the Collider to summon Gwen. Gwen in turn has to set up the events which cause Peter to be pushed into the Collider. In Miguel's eyes, the canon turn of events to keep this multiverse together would that none of these things could happen, but it did. So why? Either there is a higher power, but instead of choosing canon events and a Spider-Verse held together by them, it deems Miles getting his powers and the mixing of universes to be more important, so in turn pushed Gwen back in time when she was transported. And if so, the time loop doesn't actually end at Peter being pushed into the Collider beam, but at a later point. When Miles goes to the facility for the first time and his spider sense goes off, we hear whispers, mainly "look out," but also
You're like Miles. Look out. Oh, Miles.
These lines are all from later in the movie. From my perspective, it seems very likely that the rest of the movie was a canon event as moments were predicted at this point. And it's possible we're still in this loop going into the third movie. All of that, or Gwen was just pushed back in time when she was isekai'd, which solidified Miles getting bit, and that the multiverse is purely random and that there are no canon events. Either way, this is evidence to prove Miguel is wrong about his theory. If Miles was not supposed to be bit, Gwen would not have been transported back in time. So either he was supposed to get bitten, or that nothing at all is meant to happen, even canon events. Harder, mommy! The first two Spider-Verse movies have set new standards for animated movies, and I hope they get the widespread recognition they deserve. I understand why at the Oscars a voice actor performance can't be nominated for Best Actor and Actress, but it's crazy they aren't for things such as direction, cinematography, or original score. I always had movies I liked growing up, but never a favourite. Into the Spider-Verse was that for me, so of course I want to see this trilogy succeed. I have complete faith that the third movie will be incredible, but I would love for Beyond the Spider-Verse to be my new favourite movie. But maybe I should watch Lord of the Rings first.